Hey friends, so in honor of Pixar releasing their new movie Elemental real soon, I thought that I would count down from worst to best, ranking every single Pixar feature film that has been released. Now there have been 26 of them, so I might as well just get right on into it. Let's go, let's count it down. Number 26, Lightyear, and oh my god, what a disappointment this film was. The potential was high. I mean, this is the Toy Story franchise, and they wanted to make a movie about Buzz Lightyear that Andy would have watched in the first Toy Story movie. Like, take me right back to the 90s, please. I want to experience what it would have been like for Andy to go to the cinema and see Buzz Lightyear up there on screen. And this was just such a letdown. The story was like really convoluted and they tried to throw in so many different ideas all at once. And when you're talking about Buzz Lightyear, like one of the most iconic characters of all time, not just in animation, but like all of cinema, this was just such a failure on so many parts. So that's why it's at the bottom of the list for me. I wasn't a big fan of it at all. At number 25, Cars 3. Now, to be honest, I don't really remember this movie much, which is probably why it's ranked so low, but I just don't think it was all that memorable. It was part of the Cars franchise and they are a little bit less critically acclaimed. Even though they rake in so much money for Pixar, it's probably one of their most profitable franchises, but I didn't really love this one. I did like that they did actively try to go for more equal representation in this film in terms of gender. A lot of the characters in the Cars franchise are male characters, and the director actively tried to incorporate more female characters wherever they could, including changing the main character, Cruz Ramirez, from a boy that he was originally going to be into a female character, and I think the movie was better for that for sure. At number 24, Luca. Now this film was a bit of a hit and miss for me. I'm finding a lot of the more recent Pixar films are showing up in the bottom of my list. I think they're trying to like give more first-time directors a go at making these movies, and so it is a bit hit and miss at the moment. I couldn't really tell that this was a Pixar film. It just kind of felt like any kind of animated film. It didn't have that Pixar magic and imagination that I'm used to. It was less exciting and a little bit less ambitious, but I still enjoyed it and it was still an entertaining watch. So this is what I mean with Pixar. Like, there are so many iconic, brilliant movies that even though I found this one entertaining and it would be higher on a list of all-time animated movies, in terms of like Pixar quality, this one just didn't meet that threshold, in my opinion. At 23, Cars 2. I watched this when it came out in 2011 and then I literally haven't gone back to it since. It's a solid enough sequel. I do remember enjoying it, but just like with all the Cars films, I don't necessarily think they're breaking new ground or doing anything like brilliant in any way. As I said, it's their most profitable franchise, so of course they're gonna whack out sequel after sequel, but in terms of quality on a Pixar level, this one is just okay. At 22, Turning Red. I feel like a lot of great animated movies came out last year and this one just kind of got a little bit lost in the mix. It's definitely creative and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely up there by Pixar standards. And I know a lot of my female friends really related to this movie and enjoyed it. I just think for me personally, I didn't quite connect to it that much, and I think by the end, it just kind of fell a little bit by the numbers. But I still loved it. It still deserved to be high, but there are too many good films on this list, so here it is at 22. Number 21, The Good Dinosaur. And this movie made me cry when I was in the cinema. And honestly, a lot of people don't love it, but I still think it's a pretty good movie. The story's okay, but the visuals in this film are astonishing. Honestly, the first time I saw it, it was like genuinely breathtaking. Just absolutely wowed by a lot of the background animation and a lot of the nature animation that they did. It was like nothing I'd seen before in an animated movie. So for that reason, this movie is great. If you disregard the story and the kind of cartoonish animation of the dinosaurs, look for all the other animation going on in the background in terms of landscapes and settings and water and trees. It is beautiful. Like, not a pixel is missed. It really is stunning. And number 20, Incredibles 2. I might cop a bit of flack for this being so low, but of course The Incredibles needed a sequel. That movie is iconic. I think this movie is a fun twist on family roles, and I love that Elastigirl had more to do in this movie. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not saying I didn't like it because it is so low. I really liked it. I just think it's a solid sequel. Nothing really added to the world of animation or to the world of The Incredibles. I think it just kind of like hit where it needed to hit, and for that reason it's great. At number 19, Monsters University. movie. Similar kind of situation to Incredibles 2. It's fine, it's really enjoyable to watch, and it's a great prequel. I love that they decided to do a prequel. I feel like it didn't have the same magic and fun as the original, but I still really enjoyed watching it. At 18, Onward, a beautiful story of two brothers. I also sobbed at the end of this movie. That is a recurring theme for me when it comes to Pixar. I just openly bawl my eyes out. So yes, I really enjoyed this. It was really magical and had so much heart to it. I felt like there was a lot of story to it, and I thought it could have delved a little bit more into grief, but for what it was, I really enjoyed it, and it was a beautiful story about family that I will continue to go back to. 17, A Bug's Life. Now, I rewatched this recently and I didn't love it as much as the first few times that I watched it. I think there have been so many iconic Pixar movies since that this one kind of keeps falling back on the list of great Pixar movies, but it's still a fun watch. It's absolutely iconic, like the second movie they ever put out, and for that reason alone, it's memorable and worth the watch. It came out the same time as another movie called Ants, which is also about little bugs in an animated movie, so those kind of two like mesh for me in my memory like way back in 1998, but I still love them both, so they can still hold ground as great animation from the 90s. At 16, Brave. I really enjoyed this movie. It was the first Pixar film directed by a woman, Brenda Chapman, until they fired her, which is a whole nother story that I won't go into. But I do feel like that tension can kind of be felt in the film a little bit. It's still great and a beautiful new Disney princess for us all to enjoy with luscious long red hair. And with the movie Brave, they were really starting to like break new ground when it came to hair with animated characters, and you can really tell in this film. I mean, her luscious red locks are something to be envied, and you can tell they put their all into making her hair look absolutely stunning in this film, and it does. At number 15, Toy Story 4. This is the first Toy Story showing up on the list, and it was so good. I think the other sequels are definitely better, but this one is still a solid entry in the Toy Story franchise. It was cool to see more of Bo Peep and giving her more of a starring role. I mean, she is just badass and one of the greatest animated characters ever. Also, Gabby Gabby is honestly one of the creepiest, like almost villains I've ever seen in an animated movie. I would love Pixar to put out their first horror film and make it all about her, because I would be all up in that. It'd be so freaking creepy and amazing. And number 14, Cars. I finish off my Cars franchise rant. I actually really loved Cars when it came out. It was like 2006 and it was just so cool. Mater is one of the coolest Pixar characters, and this was Paul Newman's last film, and he was really proud of the voice work that he did for this character. So I love it for that reason, just all the nostalgia that goes along with it. It's definitely one of the most profitable Pixar movies of all time. I think a lot of their merchandise they make a lot of money from, and it was the last movie that Pixar put out before it was bought by Disney outright. Prior to that, they had just a distribution deal in place, but this was the last one as part of that, and from here on out, Pixar was owned by Disney, and it became what it is today. At number 13, Finding Dory. Now, there isn't that much love for this film, but I personally just really enjoy it. Dory is definitely one of the most iconic animated characters of all time, so it just makes sense that they give her her own movie. Yes, this was a sequel, but it didn't really feel that much like one because we hadn't really seen a story that explored Dory's world and Dory's life, so this was really cool to see. It's a beautiful story about finding your family, and I feel like Ellen DeGeneres, while she may have fallen out of love with the general public recently, we can't deny that she is iconic for Dory alone. At number 12, Toy Story 2. Okay, it is getting difficult now for me to like rank these all and separate them because from here on out, they are all so darn good. This was the first sequel that Pixar ever did, and it was originally going to be a straight-to-video sequel. I know Disney did that a lot with their animated films in the 90s, but once they saw the first footage from the film, they realized that this was going to be great and that they could probably make a lot more money by giving it a theatrical release. It did have a pretty troubled production. I read that one animator accidentally put in the code for delete everything, and all of the files they'd worked on for years for Toy Story 2 had been completely removed from all hard drives in the Pixar business. They really thought they would have to completely start again if they even had the money to do that. I don't know. It could have put Pixar completely out of business and destroyed basically the iconic animation that we have today. But thankfully, one employee who was actually working remotely still had all the files backed up on their home computer. And so they came to the rescue and saved Toy Story 2 so that we can all still enjoy it to this day. That could have ended Pixar and I would never have been able to make this video, but thankfully all is right, all is well, all was saved. And also it's just another reason to allow working from home in more jobs. At 11, Coco. Oh my God, I sobbed to this movie in the cinema. It is so good. It's a beautiful, loving tribute to Mexican culture and the importance of family. And this film came after a bit of a dry run for Pixar. They had Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, and Cars 3 all happening in a row, and those weren't very critically acclaimed or doing major things at the box office. It started making people question, like, can Pixar still make good movies? But with Coco, this one solidified that yes, they definitely can. And now we're into the top 10. At number 10, Monsters, Inc. Now, it's been a while since I've watched this film. It definitely deserves a rewatch. This was the third original film that Pixar put out, and it really cemented Pixar as the up-and-coming starlet of animation, particularly because Disney at that time was really starting to lose its footing in the public eye. They had a run of Atlantis, Treasure Planet, Brother Bear, Home on the Range, these kind of movies that weren't doing that great, and they were still really in the 2D animation world, whereas Pixar was thriving, putting out these iconic 3D movies that were also really, really good. And in the public eye, this started to push Pixar as the peak of animation, and Monsters, Inc. is just so fun. I just absolutely love this film. All the characters are so memorable and just so lovable as well. I really just want toy versions of them too. Like, Pixar became a genius when it came to making characters that would work really good for merchandising. At number 9, Toy Story 3. Need I say more than that furnace scene at the end of this film? Oh my God, I was in tears, absolute agony watching that. It was just heart-wrenching. And I really struggled to rewatch this movie because of it. Also the fact that we grew up as kids watching Toy Story in the 90s, and this was 15 years later. Like, every kid that grew up with the first Toy Story is now watching Toy Story 3 as an adult. And we are saying goodbye to not just these toys that made up who we were as kids, but also saying goodbye to our whole childhood. This film found a way to eat into that nostalgia and make us just really feel every single ounce of it. It is poetic, perfect timing for a sequel like this, and just a beautiful story as well. We love these characters. It really felt like the final film in a trilogy. I know they did a fourth one, so it kind of put that to rest, but this film was outstanding on its own. At number 8, The Incredibles. Now, this is just absolute fun. And is this the best superhero movie ever made? I mean, Marvel could never. Am I right? I just think this is so freaking good. And I feel like they were doing a superhero movie when it wasn't the coolest thing to do at the time, so they really put it on the map. And I think this is the reason that we now have Marvel and DC going absolutely ham on superhero films. They will never top The Incredibles, but hey, they can at least try. And there are so many memorable characters in this that are so entertaining. I mean, Edna Mode, need I say more? The Incredibles is just incredible. It's just incredible. I've got no other word to say for it. It's so darn good. At number 7, Soul. Now, this movie just proves that even as Pixar might be going through a little bit of a period as they put out new releases that aren't doing that well, Soul really proved that they can still do brilliant, beautiful, poetic animation. The story to this, the score is phenomenal in this movie. It's a very adult film dealing with themes of grief and death, but it does it so well and so poetically as well. It's about cherishing every single moment that we have on Earth and every single thing that we experience in life and see along the way. Absolutely take in every single moment. It has such a powerful message, and I feel like it's a newer film, but I don't think people really respect it and acknowledge it in the pantheon of great animation, and I think it really deserves that kind of love and glory because it is beautiful. I think it's less leaning more as a kids film, definitely more into adult territory by Pixar standards, but it's still absolutely beautiful, and they're really trying to experiment with new kinds of animation in this too. I really love what they did with this. At number 6, Ratatouille. This was was so close to my top 5. I know this film had some like trouble in production, but it turned out great. It is so gorgeous, and I just love every single story thing that happens along the way. It was the start of probably the greatest 4-film run of any movie studio ever. I mean, we had this, WALL-E, Up, and then Toy Story 3. I mean, so good. The score for this film also is incredible. Michael Giacchino, who did Up and The Incredibles, did this too, and it's just so fun and zany. It came out really strong, but I feel like Ratatouille has only grown with love over time. People keep finding new affection for this movie the longer that time goes on, and it was even referenced a little bit in Everything Everywhere All at Once recently. I just think this one is one of the Pixar films that's really gonna stand the test of time. All right, we are now at the top 5 best Pixar films, and my number 5 pick is Up. I mean, that 5-minute montage at the beginning of the film alone could get this film into the top 5, but as a whole, it is so fun and so enjoyable. It was the first Pixar film I feel like to really grapple with death and grief in really profound ways. And for a film marketed to kids, that's pretty extraordinary. But it's also really fun and adventurous and magical. I mean, the characters are super quirky, like Doug the dog is just so fun. And it really shows that with animation, you can incorporate a lot of adult themes while still marketing and making the movie for kids. So that's why I love Up just so much. Love all the colors, all the balloons. It was just so purely beautifully magical, and it just is quintessential Pixar to me. At number 4, the OG Toy Story. I mean, need I say any more? This is the film that started it all off, and it is so iconic. There is so much nostalgia wrapped into this film as well. I just cannot resist watching it constantly. Yes, the animation now looks old and dated, but it's really cool to see the transformation of animation from 1995 with the first Toy Story film all the way up to 2019 with the 4th Toy Story film. There is such an evolution of animation that spans those 25 years, which is just extraordinary to see. At number 3, Finding Nemo. Now, I remember buying this DVD like way back in 2003 before I'd even seen the film. I spent my hard-earned allowance. It's like $20. It was all I'd saved up for ages to buy this film, and I could have hated it. I really didn't know if I'd like it or not, but my God, it was spectacular. And this was probably like the first animated movie that truly wowed me when I was like 10. But my God, it is so hilarious, but poignant too. And the ensemble cast of characters in this is literally unmatched. I mean, Dory alone is one of the most iconic animated characters, up there with like Donkey from Shrek and the genie from Aladdin. Like Ellen DeGeneres just created this character with brilliant voice work, and it really like set the stage and created the blueprint for what I feel like animated movies need when it comes to having a big cast of characters. Back in the early 2000s, this actually became the biggest selling DVD of all time, and because DVDs have since gone out of fashion, it still holds that record today, making $800 million. I mean, this movie was inescapable back then, and I'm not surprised. It is just so darn good. At number 2, Inside Out. Oh, I bawled my eyes out in the cinema to this film. I was like on the cusp of completely blubbering and breaking down in the like quietest movie theater I have ever been in. It took everything in me not to just utterly break down into like a loud sob. But this movie is just beautiful. Just absolutely phenomenal, and I love it to death. For a film about emotion, it is a roller coaster. It lets you feel every single emotion possible, and that is quite a task. Not just for any movie, but for animation, that's pretty incredible to do. It was teaching all of us, kids and adults, the importance of emotion and the importance of feeling every single emotion that comes to us, to not shy away from feeling it all, and how different emotions can actually be of benefit. How something like sadness can actually help us find joy, or can create a memory or create meaning in some way. This film is so imaginative, so colorful, and yet at the same time is so adventurous and lovable. I mean, Bing Bong alone. Where is he? Bing Bong. I broke down. I mean, Take Us to the Moon for me. I can't put two and two words together anymore. I'm just so emotional. That film, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. From start to finish, not a foot wrong. An amazing screenplay, beautiful animation. The director, Pete Docter, is an absolute genius, and I am so happy this movie exists. I need to stop talking about it. I'm so obsessed. Okay, at number 1, the best Pixar movie of all time. And this was a really hard. It was like neck and neck, like the entire top 10. But at number 1, it is the stunning, the incredible WALL-E. This is an adventure. To make us fall in love with a robot with a 35-minute opening with no dialogue is nothing short of extraordinary. It believes in our ability to pick up subtleties and emotion and story beats purely from the animation, and that is no small feat. The relationship between WALL-E and Eve is just so pure and so wholesome. It's genuinely funny, but leaves us with a really powerful message about the state of the world today and the state of the world from here on out. It's a very timeless film and a very timeless message as well. It makes a very powerful statement on protecting our environment and also being very cautious of corporate greed and consumerism. It's the kind of thing that cinema can teach us subtly and powerfully, and it's quite incredible that they were able to do this through an animated kids film when you boil down to it. We must protect our planet, and this film does such a wonderful job of showing us that, but in such a pure and fun way, you don't even realize that that's the kind of message that they're telling us. The scenes in outer space are just stunning. It is grand, and they had help from the legendary cinematographer Roger Deakins. This film is just so fun from start to finish and has such a powerful message associated with it too. I couldn't resist making it the number 1 film. You really could just chuck any of the top 5 into the first place and I'd be like, yes, I agree. So it was very difficult for me to just actually rank them out, but I tried to give it my best shot. I love so many Pixar movies, and WALL-E for me is just one I keep coming back to over and over and over again. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think I ranked it correctly? Would you change the order around a little bit? Do you think it deserves to go backwards? I don't know. Let me know what you think and what your favorite Pixar movie is in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and also subscribe. I make videos every week about movies, music, TV shows, awards season, absolutely everything to do with the world of entertainment because I am obsessed with it. Have an awesome week. It's your friend Phil, and I will see you next time.